Water is very important to life. Without water, there won't be any living things. A great portion of our body is made up of water. If there isn't enough water in the body, a person can become sick and eventually die. Karen, can you name me some more uses of water?
Besides drinking, we use the water for washing, bathing, and cooking.
Water is also used extensively in industry. For example, an electroplating factory. And building of houses. In the farm, watering of plants is done almost every day.
Now I know why we don't see many plants in the desert.
Karen, can you tell us all you know about water?
Well, water is a liquid and it's colorless. Water finds its own level and it takes the shape of the container it is poured into.
When we say water, we normally refer to water in its liquid state. Ice is water in solid state. As a solid, it has a definite shape. Water can also exist in another state, that is, the gaseous state. Water in gaseous state is called water vapor. You cannot see water vapor, but it's present in the air. It doesn't have a definite shape. When you want to change liquid water into a solid, you'll have to take this beaker of water and put it into the freezer of the refrigerator. As the process takes quite some time, why don't we watch the speeded up film? Water cools when it loses heat. In the freezer, when the water is cooled to 0 degrees Celsius, it freezes. That is, it changes from liquid water to solid ice. This process is called freezing, and the temperature is 0 degrees Celsius. Now, let's see what happens when ice receives heat. The solid ice becomes liquid water when it receives heat. The change from solid state to liquid state is called melting. When the ice begins to melt, the temperature is also 0 degrees Celsius.
Can you show the change of water from liquid to gaseous state and back to liquid state?
Yes. First, I want you to take this piece of wet cloth and wipe the chalkboard. The chalkboard is wet with little drops of water. Now let's wait for a while and see what happens.
Now the chalkboard becomes dry. Where did the water go?
The water is changed from a liquid state into a gaseous state. The gas is called water vapor, which you can't see. When water becomes water vapor, we say it evaporates.
Now I know why the puddles of water on the road disappear. And why our wet clothes become dry.
Can you tell me what caused the water to evaporate?
It must be the heat from the sun and the wind?
Yes, you're right. Now let's see the change of water from a gaseous state to a liquid state. The beaker of water is heated. Observe carefully and tell me the changes.
I can see bubbles at the bottom and side wall of the flask. Now, the bubbles are bigger and they move rapidly.
Yes, when water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, we see bubbles in all parts of the water. These bubbles contain very hot water vapor or steam. The water vapor rises, but it is invisible. The cloud that you see is not a gas, but tiny drops of water. Hold an aluminum tray just above the funnel in the path of the hot water vapor. Observe what happens.
I can see tiny drops of water on the tray. Why?
When the water vapor meets the cool surface of the tray, it changes back into drops of water. We say that the water vapor condenses. The changing of water vapor into water is called condensation. Let me show you another example of condensation. This is a dry glass. Pour some cold water into it. Observe carefully and tell me what happens.
I can see tiny drops of water on the outside of the glass. Will the same thing happen to a cold apple taken from the refrigerator?
Let's see.
Yes, tiny drops of water are formed. How?
There is water vapor in the air around us. The cold apple cools the water vapor around it and condenses the water vapor into drops of water.
Hamish, do we get rain in the same way?
Well, let me explain. The rain brings us water. Some of the rainwater seeps into the ground. The rest flows into the drains, rivers, and ends up in the ponds, lakes, reservoirs, and seas. Now, in this picture, water comes from the trees, animals, river, lake, sea, and other places. The water evaporates into the air as water vapor. As the water vapor rises high up in the sky, it is cooled. The cooled water vapor condenses and becomes tiny drops of water. These tiny drops of water gather to become clouds. As more and more water vapor condenses, the drops of water in the clouds get bigger and heavier. Then they fall as rain. Some of the water is used by man and other animals. Some of it goes into ground and is used up by plants. Most of the water goes back to the rivers, lakes, and seas. The water is again evaporated into the air. This happens over and over again in a cycle. We call this the water cycle.
Well, the water cycle shows changes of state, from liquid to gas and back to liquid.
Yes, but in some cold countries where the temperature is very cold in winter, snow, which is a solid, falls instead of rain. The most important thing is the water cycle ensures that all living things are provided with water for their survival. So don't waste water. Goodbye.
Goodbye.